You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the journalist and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman and the former Conservative MP and advisor to the royal household, who's now chief executive of the charity Business in the Community, Mary McLeod. They'll both be with us from now until just before midnight. So let us see what is on the front pages for you. Well, Raab quits in fury. That's the lead for The Guardian, after the Deputy Prime Minister quit over workplace bullying allegations, but refused to accept he was in fact a bully. The Times says Mr Raab went down swinging in the face of what he says was a tyranny of subjective hurt feelings. The Eye, meanwhile, says the civil servants who worked under him are angry at what they call his tone-deaf resignation. The Express quotes allies of Mr Raab as saying he was forced out just for wanting the best for Britain. The Telegraph reports that in the end it was a row over a plan to put Spanish forces on the ground in Gibraltar during Brexit negotiations that scuppered Mr Raab. The Mail asks if this was the day the country became ungovernable, when a top cabinet minister was forced to quit for hurting the feelings of civil servants. The growing troubles at the CBI lead the Financial Times, with several major companies quitting the organisation after new allegations of serious misconduct. And the Star returns to an old favourite, the weather, with a prediction of Arctic winds to come, followed by a mini heatwave. Confused you will be. Now, a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Jenny Kleeman and Mary McLeod. Welcome to both of you. So, to the one story in town this evening. Raab quits in fury. That's the headline on the front of The Guardian. Jenny.
Yes, The Guardian says that Dominic Raab quit grudgingly. He grudgingly accepted the findings of the inquiry, but I don't think that he grudgingly is really the right word. I mean, he was furious, clearly, today. His resignation letter was furious. Some of the television interviews he gave today were incredibly defiant. He showed absolutely no remorse. He doesn't agree with the findings of the inquiry, but he had boxed himself in because he had, of course, said that if he was found to have been a bully at all, he would resign. And on 2 counts, they were found not in his favour. He thinks he's done nothing wrong, which is probably why he should resign, because he was found. I think the word abrasive is mentioned sort of 6 or 7 times in the report. He is found to have been aggressive. His whole take is that he never swore and shouted. You can be a bully without swearing and shouting. His take, he's come out swinging. His take is that he has been targeted by unionised officials. He says he had been warned that these civil servants were trying to undermine him, basically, and they had ganged up on him to get rid of him. But the thing is, if you think you're being targeted by unionised officials, you can not give them the ammunition. You can not behave in such a way that allegations like this stand up when there's a thorough investigation into these claims. So bullies often accuse their victims of being passive-aggressive, which is what Dominic Raab is doing here. He's saying that civil servants are being passive-aggressive and resisting him because they don't agree with the politics of what he's doing. But one person's definition of passive-aggressive is another person behaving in a certain way because they're frightened and they don't know what to do in the face of a very aggressive minister. In order for the business of government to work, civil servants need to feel that they can disagree with ministers, and ministers need to feel that they can talk to civil servants. There needs to be a proper exchange of ideas. Clearly, this was not possible in the departments where Dominic Raab was running, in those cases where there were several allegations of him being a bully. So it's right that he's resigned.
And Mary, he's described, Dominic Raab he's described those civil servants as activist civil servants and said that they were trying to block the work of government, and they were there was a culture resistance to policies, and also that the threshold for bullying was too low.
Yes, and there's two sides to very clearly in the newspaper today of the two sides to this story. But it has led to Dominic Raab resigning, given the report findings, and he has apologised in his letter for any unintended stress or offence that officials felt. But he does put in it that it's due to pace, standards and challenge. And that's where there has to be a really clear understanding of how you still get things done in government and be able to challenge. But that is very different to bullying and intimidation. And there was a 48-page report into the behaviour by Adam Tolley KC. So this has been looking at various roles of Dominic Raab as a Deputy Prime Minister, Justice Secretary, Lord Chancellor, Foreign Secretary, Brexit Secretary. But as Jenny mentioned, Raab did say in an interview earlier this year that he would resign if the report found any signs of him acting inappropriately towards officials. And therefore, he has kept his word by resigning. And even though the report cleared him of 6 charges, he did uphold the other 2 claims. And they've said it was an abuse of power and intimidated staff. But yes, Dominic Raab is angry about this, and he doesn't feel that he was bullying. He didn't shout and swear at staff. But the report, and it's interesting that it goes right across, whether it's government, business, society as a whole, is what is it that constitutes bullying? And the report basically clearly shows that if you make someone feel uncomfortable, if you belittle them, target them, if you're aggressive, intimidating, then that counts as bullying. So those charges were upheld. But there has to be a way for, if there are performance issues with civil servants, then there are ways to discuss that with them, and there needs to be a clear procedure to complain about MPs and in this case ministers, and Simon Case, the Cabinet Secretary, is looking at how to handle these complaints. But this is, really about how leaders get the best out of their teams, whether I said as business or in government, and how you need a positive workplace culture, which you need that for morale, for well-being, for productivity. So it's really critical that any allegations of bullying or intimidation are absolutely investigated and acted upon swiftly. So I think there may be more to come on this story, but it's one that is not just for ministers and government. It's about how do leaders right across society work with people, make them feel as though they are valued, listen to them, yes, develop them and tell them if things aren't appropriate and they need to do some better work. But it can be done in different ways. Yeah. And this has shown that the report has shown that how Raab had done it just wasn't acceptable.
Yes, and Jenny, speaking to your comment earlier that Dominic Raab has shown no remorse in the Saturday Times, he's actually saying that the government risked being derailed by a tyranny of subjective hurt feelings. I mean, that just the tone in his words there obviously suggests that there is no remorse.
Well, and it suggests more than that. He is casting himself as a victim of snowflake culture. That's what this tyranny of hurt feelings is. And this is the thing about bullying, is there isn't a standard definition. It is to do with how you make people feel. This isn't about hurt feelings, though. If you look at the report, it's about people feeling continually intimidated. There were reports of someone being physically sick before a meeting with Dominic Raab. This is more than hurt feelings. But he is casting this as he being a doer, working with a bunch of, frankly, feeble people who he talks about subjective hurt feelings that stop ministers delivering for voters. And this is going to play very well into into the kind of culture war part of politics at the moment, and this idea that the doers are being scuppered by these incredibly weak, feeble people and their hurt feelings. But that would be a misrepresentation of the allegations and what's in the report. You can give critical feedback to people who work for you without making them physically sick or scared to come to work. I think many people have worked with someone who is a bully or who is very unpleasant and knows what it's like to wake up in the morning and have that feeling of dread because you're going to have to interact with them. It is not a necessary requirement of being a strong leader and good at your job to be unnecessarily harsh on people. In fact, I think we all know now that that is not a component of leadership, it being able to strike fear into the heart of people who work with you. And what's quite worrying is that the narrative now is that this is to do with activist civil servants trying to manipulate the system by claiming to be hurt, by being snowflakes, basically. And that's very worrying because that's not what the report found.
And yet when we turn to the Eye, Mary, they're reporting the fact that the civil servants are angry at the tone of the resignation from Dominic Raab, the fact that it's tone deaf and didn't display any remorse whatsoever.
Yes, although he does say in that letter that he apologises for any unintended stress or offence that he caused officials. But I think overall, the officials are saying he's not really accepting that the two. Actually, Raab does accept the report. But I think the officials are saying that they don't see any sort of change in what his behaviour would be. So I think this is a really important lesson on this. I think there's been behaviour that's gone on in business and in government for a long time that just you wouldn't really tolerate in other aspects. And certainly when years ago in business, when there's a case of bullying came up, it was in essence that if someone felt intimidated and bullied, therefore they had a case that had to be answered to. And I remember then we let go of a senior executive because of that. So it's, these are really important, I think, questions about how we run workplaces,
Indeed.
how we make sure that people can actually do their best and we get the best out of them.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview and still with me, Jenny Kleeman and Mary McLeod. Let's take a look at the Financial Times weekend and this story about the CBI that we've been running in our bulletins throughout the evening and the big names that are deciding to withdraw their membership after a second woman has alleged that she was raped while working for the CBI. Mary, take us into this.
Yeah, it's been a very difficult few weeks for the CBI as this story has unfolded of shocking experiences of workplace behaviour, culture, sexual misconduct, allegation of rape, sexual harassment, drug taking, bullying. And of course, Tony Danker, the Director General, when there were allegations about his conduct, and he was dismissed, of course, for workplace misconduct. And since then, horrific to hear that there are now two separate allegations of rape that have taken place historically at the CBI. So yes, so many companies, it has been reported that they're left or suspended their membership, and there's NatWest, John Lewis, Aviva, WPP, Virgin Media, Tesco, etc., Lloyds, Mastercard, no longer working with the CBI for now. And the CBI have come back and they've now suspended all policy and membership activity until June. There will be an extraordinary general meeting where the CBI will try and present a reformed and refocused a CBI and showing what that change in culture will be. But that, of course, that independent investigation that's taken place at the CBI's request has led to the suspension of 3 staff. So the conclusions will be published next week. And I do wish Rain Newton-Smith, who's a new Director General, all the best as she tries to manage this crisis, and also the President of the CBI, Brian McBride, who need to lead the organisation through this. But it's a really important a time for them as they try and find a way through to change what it seems to be the culture. And certainly I know from Business in the Community, which is another business membership organisation, a network of business leaders. I mean, there has to be zero tolerance approach to inappropriate behaviour.
Let's just see if we can get Jenny
because
in
you
on
have to
this
show you're
story,
serious about change.
Mary, because we're running out of time. So they are pledging cultural reform. Is that possible, or does the CBI need to be disbanded, Jenny?
I think it might be a bit too late for the CBI. It is clearly becoming toxic. And as an organisation that's supposed to lobby for the interests of business, it needs two things. It needs lots of big businesses to be members, and it needs the ear of government. And at the moment, it has neither. And so, I would say it's on very thin ice at the moment. I can't really think of what it would take for them to turn things around. And they're taking these measures, which is great. But it does feel like the CBI is on its last legs when it's hemorrhaging members, major companies pulling out minute by minute today.
Yes, Mary, that as we've already suggested, they are really saying that the CBI will be closed for business until this extraordinary meeting when they'll get members to vote on the future. But with your experience within the business community, what is their next move? What can they do?
Well, they're going to do a root and branch review of everything, listen to people within the organisation, and bring in hopefully experts to help them, show them the way of how you create an inclusive culture. Make sure that people feel that they are creating a sort of safe environment for people to work in. But they definitely need to find that way through to how to be more inclusive, how to create that culture where people feel supported, included, safe, be able to perform their best. And you can change culture, but it's fundamental reform, it's systems,
Mary.
processes, education and positive action. So I hope they can do it.